Alright, and here we have our temple bases that we were working on in the previous video, and we went ahead and just did a like a gray base coat on them, and then we kind of dusted it a little bit with the it's like a sand or khaki color, and then finally we hit it with just a little bit of white as well, just so it's a little darker down in the cracks, a little more gray, and then it's kind of getting like our kind of sand color going on now. And then we're going to go ahead and grab agrax earthshade here, and we're going to give that one a nice little shake, and then we're going to go through and basically just wash all of like the sand that we attached on there, and then also want to kind of get in between like any kind of cracks or down in any crevices or like deep shadows or anything like that as well. So we're just basically going to go around, and essentially that's going to give us like our transition between like the actual like ruin itself essentially and the ground. And then we're going to do like a little dry brush and everything, kind of add a little bit of detail and a little bit of like color into it towards the end there. So but that's all we're basically just looking to do, add just like a little bit of darkness down in, and then if you want to go in and do like down in there as well, you can, or whatever you're working on, you can kind of get like a little extra down in the cracks there, so then when you hit it with the dry brush it's going to lighten everything up around it, and then that's going to stand out like even more so. So again, we're just going to go around and kind of do each one, and we'll just keep in mind these are our bases, so you want to keep it nice and keep it looking good, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to sacrifice some quality for speed in certain steps, and this is one of the ones where speed is important, especially when you're in a situation like this when we're doing like 50 something or more of these things. So but that's all. We're just going to kind of get it down in some of the cracks there a little bit, and just sort of darken it up. That way when we do hit it with our washes later on, it's going to bring out the color even more. Alright, so that's it. We came back through with the agrax earthshade and went ahead over our bases, and we basically tried to get it down nice and thick coating down over all the sand that we added onto the base, down into all the recesses, and essentially just making sure that we didn't get it onto like the most raised area of the flooring, and we left that essentially like the brightest color, and then we just made sure that we got it like down in all the cracks and down in around it to give it some depth and everything. But again, we don't want to get too crazy with our bases. We want them to look nice and everything when you pay attention to them, but we don't want the base itself to like draw the attention like away from the model or anything like that. So and then these are going to take plenty of time to dry. We want to make sure that it's completely dry down in like all the cracks and everything before we come back in and start doing any dry brushing, or else what's going to happen is when you try to dry brush it and lighten it up, the shade gets right on your brush and then ends up just blending it together and defeats the purpose of what you're attempting to do. But as you can see already, we're starting to get a great effect out of these bases, which have essentially been cheap to make, and also haven't taken a ton of effort because we did a bunch of them all at once. So if you were just doing a handful of them, it might be a little more difficult. If you were doing one, it wouldn't really make sense. But in a case like this where we were able to do, essentially like 50 bases out of one of those pieces, it really makes it worth it to take like a $20 or $25 piece, something like that, and cut it up into 50 bases. It works out to like 50 cents a base and a little bit of time, which is actually cheaper than what you're going to be able to buy like third-party bases for anyway. So if that was your other option. And then obviously these are completely unique, and although they're for two completely different armies, they work with basically anything. So we're going to give these plenty of time to dry, and then we'll come back and sort of lighten up and start bringing out the detail on them as well. So alright, now for our next step here, all we're going to do is just take a little bit of our reikland fleshade and just put it on a nice big brush here, and we're going to go ahead and grab one of our bases, and we're just going to do a nice dry brush. So we want to make sure that we have like most of the paint off the brush, but essentially all we're doing is we're just going to like flick it over top of the raised areas, so we still keep like the dark down in the cracks and everything that we applied through the wash, but we're basically just transitioning like these different colors together into one. And then we're just going to go through like one after another and do each one of these the same way. And we just want to make sure, like, and the ones like this where you have like the raised up like stone look, we want to kind of get like a decent amount of paint on it so it gives it almost like a shinier look to it. But again, you just want to make sure you don't have so much on your brush that it takes like completely takes everything over and just turns it all like that reikland fleshade color. But we want to make sure we get the skulls nice and good. We want to make sure we get like any raised areas of like bits of like rubble or anything like that. And again, we're just looking to basically like blend together now those multiple colors and kind of give them like a little more of like a uniform look for like the whole base now. And we're just gonna go through and just do all of them like that, and then we can move on to the next step. Alright, and now that we've dry brushed all bases with the rakarth flesh, and you know, we're starting to get some real contrast now and a nice little color, we're going to go back through now and we're going to take our white, and then we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to do it a little bit lighter than we do with the rakarth flesh. So we're only picking out like the more extreme, like sharper edges, or like the you know, higher like raised surfaces. And then you know, you could probably call it here if you wanted to, you know, but in this case we want to bring out just a little bit more detail from the bases and a little more depth to them. So we're just going to take our white, we're just going to use the same little piece of throwaway paper or palette or whatever, and do the same thing. We're going to get most of the paint off of the brush, and then we're just going to get one of our bases here, and we just want to basically like flick the brush over the surface. And again, we're just looking to bring out some of the brightness on like only the raised surfaces. Sometimes you want to get like a little bit on the like base edge, like the rim itself, but you don't want to go too crazy, you don't want to press too hard, and you don't want to have too much paint on your brush. And then just remember, we are going to go through and paint the actual rims of the bases when we're done. So, but that's basically the effect we're looking for, just kind of bringing out a little bit of the raised edges and like the sharper detail. And we just want to go through one after another and do them all up just like that. And you'll see as we start to do it, you can start to see like the stone and the sand and all the detail kind of coming out. You'll see the skulls start to brighten up a little bit, and the edges become a little more pronounced, and then we really start to get like the effect that we're looking for, you know, like the earth terrain, and kind of like bringing it all out, but then it has still like a uniform color throughout, to represent obviously that, you know, whatever buildings around or temple or whatever it is, you know, whatever dirt is all kind of just mixed together, and that's like the uniform color of like the terrain or the planet or the battlefield, whatever it is. So, but yeah, that's basically what we're looking to do. Just want to go over, just bring out a little bit more detail in the raised areas. So we just go through each one.